Okay, so like I was saying, this is the coloring tutorial. So it's part 3 of this assignment. The first thing I want you guys to do is recognize that coloring, when you're actually doing it on a more professional level, is not like coloring in elementary school, in which you just pick a bunch of random colors and you go for it. Coloring, if you're doing it on this level, should be something that's a little more controlled. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to choose your palette. Now what that means is, other than skin tone, we're not going to include that, you're going to choose a couple of colors that you are going to use. Meaning you're not going, if you have like a pack of 60 pencil crayons, you're not going to use all 60. You're going to very carefully choose the ones that you do use. So for my color palette, I'm going to go with different reds, because I have a kind of star there, a meteor. So the colors that I'm going to work with are going to be reds, oranges, yellows, and I will add a gray or black just to create that really, really like high contrast. But generally, don't go all black straight in. If you're doing black, I'm going to show you there is a way to do it. There are other ways, like if you want to have like black pants or something, there's other ways to do it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just showing you. These are my pencil crayons. They are super expensive. These are the ones that I'm going to use to shade. And like I told you, it's shading in layers. So if I look, these are all my yellows. So yellow, yellow, orange, reds, and there's a little bit of pink in there, and then I'm using the gray and black. Now, what I am going to show you right now is a different way of using black. So if you want just a flat black color, okay, you can't just color something in black. What you want to do is make sure that you are acknowledging, for example, the boots, I would like to color these in black, but I want to make sure that I know that they are shiny. So in order to do that, I have to create the shine. I choose a direction that it's coming from. So I'm going to say it's coming from, but my light is over here, which means that my shine is going to be on the left-hand side. And I just create the reflection. Okay, you do it by just creating like a white area around the edge. And then on the top of the boot, I have to keep this line because I have to show where the foot hits the ground. So I'm going to do, again, a little semicircle to illustrate that that is going to stay white. It's going to be a shine. Now, I'm using a black marker. You can use a thicker black marker. Please remember, if you are using a Sharpie, put something underneath it so you don't destroy your family's coffee table or dinner table, wherever you're working, your personal desk. We want to make sure that your damage is minimum. If you do have an accident with a Sharpie, hand sanitizer actually usually gets rid of it. It'll keep like a shadow, but for the most part, it's pretty good at removing it. So I want to be very careful if I'm working with ink, because ink cannot be removed from paper. If you mess up on the ink, generally the only way to fix it is to start over again. So I go very, very carefully. I usually go in these kind of long lines. I want to get that flat color. There is a bunch of different ways to do this, but I find working in long lines or in small sections is the best way to do it, and then being very, very careful around the edges. Okay, and there's one of my shine areas, so I'm going to make sure I leave that open. And then I'm going to black in this. Okay, so if you look, this is the very, very most basic way of doing this. I could get crazy and do way more reflection to show the texture of the boots. I've done that before. But for this, it's just, we're going to go simple, because the expectation of this course is that most people are not like master artists or even very, very well versed in it. Like the expectation is many of you have never taken art before in your life. So again, long lines. I want to make sure that it is all colored in a flat black. I don't want to leave little gaps, but I do want to be careful with it. Okay, so that's what you do if you're looking for a flat black area. Now, I will warn you, you don't want to do this with everything. Okay, like these black accents where you're just working with flat black, they're good as accents. They're not good if you're going to color your entire character in, because it takes a lot away from the character. They stop being interesting and they start just being this giant black mass, which is never good. Now, the next thing that you want to do is, if you're doing this, you want to work from the lightest color forward. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my pencil crayons generally in order of lightness. I'm going to pull a couple more yellows because I might need them. And then just make sure I have everything I need, because I don't want to be rummaging around looking for it. Okay. So these are my yellows. Yellow is obviously the lightest color if I'm going to be working with this. So what I want to do is put my yellows down in the areas that they are going to show. I'm going to put the yellows down to very, very lightly in the areas that are going to be orange and red as well, because I want this to be like my base color. I want it to be like a little fiery looking. So this yellow will provide a really good base for that. Okay, so if I'm usually doing anything with red, I like to put a yellow down. If I'm doing anything with brown, I usually put an ochre, which is like this yellow, or an umber down. Green, actually you can put a yellow down too, because yellow and blue make green. And then if you're doing blue or purple, you want to put a very, very light blue down. Okay. So this is me. The beginning is just putting down all your base colors. So like I said, there is going to be a lot of shading in this and blending of color. We don't want to just put down the base color and be like, all right, we're calling it a day, it's done. This is just the beginning. We're trying to create a significant depth of color. In order to do that, you need to layer. Color with pencil crayon works more like watercolor or stained glass than it does like a drawing material. It's all about layering things on top of each other to create new colors and to make it a little more deep and interesting. So, quick coloring this in. I've got to get all aspects of my cape. I'm just going to do the one side and then you can see the other side later. So now that I have that in, the other thing I'm going to do is this I want to keep white. That means I have two options here. I need to find a very, very light gray or like a light brown. So these are my light grays. This light gray is more browny looking. This light gray is more bluey looking. I'm going to go with this one because brown has a little more of a warm tone. And this is where I'm going to do the shading. So it's going to get pretty light. Okay, so I'm going to like do the arms just like we were shading it the other day under the breasts, because obviously there's going to be a shadow there. And this is just to provide that so that this thing isn't just going to be like a total flat white area. I need to do this shade. I don't know what color I'm going to make the pants yet, but let's shade them anyway. And obviously I've already shaded the boots and the cape. Okay, and so this would have more shading too because it's under the cape. Alright, so it's not very visible because it's very, very light, but it just adds a little bit more depth. Now, here comes the actual color. So what you want to do is, in your mind, you want to know where these colors are going. So I'm going to leave the center here yellow, but I want this starburst to look orange. So I'm going to take this orange, which is my middle tone, and I'm going to lay it over top of my yellow. Again, I'm working light. I want to start at the edges with heavy pressure and then lighten up as I go around. And that creates more of like a hard tone. You want to go with like heavy pressure and then lighten up. Okay, so if you want something to be like fully dark, don't press hard, just keep drawing over top of it. So, and then once I've done that, I'm going to take my darkest orange that I'm using, which is, I think it's this one. I'll just use a very dark orange so that you can see it. Okay, and then I'm just going to use it on the very, very edges to create that blending appearance. Right, just like we did on the shading chart where I asked you to blend the two colors together. This is why we learned how to do that. Okay, and then my final touch on this is I'm going to make this center area a different kind of orange or a different kind of yellow. Okay, then these areas too, I want to make sure that I use all the same colors on all the areas because I want them to work together and tie together. Okay, and so I'm just doing the same thing. I'm pressing harder on the edge and then lightening up as I go in, which gives it more of an appearance of like color change. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. I'm going to do here, and then I'm going to lighten up so that it blends into this yellow color. Okay, I'm going to go harder just so that you guys can see it on the screen, because when you do this properly, the colors tend to melt. So you want to blend. Okay, and I can do this here too. The easiest way of doing this is to ensure that you know what colors are going down first. So you know where it's going. If you don't, that's okay. You just have to kind of take a moment. Don't throw something down unless you're sure about it. Now, what I want to do for this cape is I want to make the cape a darker red. So in order to do that, I pick, this is pretty bright. I find a red that I like. This one's Scarlet Red, so that should work for me. And what's this one? Carmine. You can also have a piece of paper that we call a tester. So you could actually like draw in the colors on a corner and try it out. So that's what I'm doing right here. These are tester colors. Normally it would be a separate piece of paper. So I have my three reds. This one is the darkest, this is the yellow, and then this one is lighter. So what I'm going to do is, I've already got the yellow down. I'm going to start with the mid-tone. And same deal, I'm going to go over top of it because I want this entire thing red. Okay, I'm just going to do this side for the sake of going a little bit faster so that you don't have to watch me color the entire thing. So the outside here, I want to make sure that that is definitely a solid red. So again, in the corners, I'm going to just darken it up a little bit with layers, not with pressing really hard, just using a layer. Then I'm going to take my darkest red and I'm going to blend that in. Okay, so same thing I was doing before with the yellows and with the color blending. I want to blend that in with my lighter red. And then if you look, the yellow underneath gives it kind of a fiery appearance so that when I stop blending and the areas that haven't been covered by the two reds, they have like that yellow look underneath them. Now, here's a fun part that I wanted to show you guys. This area right by the head obviously is going to be darker. Okay, so I'm going to take a gray, because that gray is generally the color of shadows, and I'm just going to darken up that area with the gray with a light layer of gray. Okay, so think of it this way. The gray is less blending and more of a layer. The reason I'm doing this is I want to show the shadow. I want to show that this is actually receding and that this pops up. Okay, same thing here. This area, because it's the fabric that would face out, is going to be brighter in color. So I'm just going to do, again, a layer of that lighter red that I want to use. And then I'm going to use my darker red just to like give it that depth. There's another technique that you can use if it's looking like this and it's looking kind of cloudy. This is called blending. What you do is you take the lighter tones, the yellow, and then you can press hard and go over top, and it will create a blended color. Now, the problem with this is you don't want to use it all the time, because if you don't like the color, too bad, it's stuck there. That's pretty much the only thing you can do. At that point, you've filled in all the fibers of the paper, so there's no way that that color is going to change. But if you know what you're doing and you're confident that you like that color, you can blend. So I'm doing it so that my cape looks more fiery. Okay, and so then again, because this area would be dark, I'm going to take my darker color, which is this scarlet. I'm going to go through it, do another layer. Be careful, I'm kind of going over the edges here and I don't want to do that. We want to make sure that this layer is distinct from the yellow part, because this is under the cape. The yellow part is the over part of the cape. Okay, and once that layer is in, again, take the same gray that you used to shade up here, and you're going to shade those areas that the body would block. Okay, so the main thing is consistency. It's using those same colors over and over again on the drawing to make it look like it belongs there. Okay, so the gray is very dark, but I'm using it every single time. I'm not going to switch out my grays. This is going to be the color I've committed to using for my shadows. So I just keep using it. Now, once I get here, it's going to be lighter. Well, here it'll be a little dark because it overlaps with the fabric. But once it's here, obviously this is going to be lighter because this doesn't get hit as hard with that the shadow, because it's facing straight forward. And I'm just going to lighten up and allow that to pass. So if you look here, you can see it goes darker, and then I want it to just smooth out into a lighter layer. So that's a general idea of how to color with pencil crayons and what I'm expecting. You want to layer things over top of each other. You want these colors to blend together. You don't want it to look like, you know, one flat color, you pressed really hard and that's it. So the last part of this tutorial that I'm going to teach you is skin tone. Actually, you know what? I'll do skin tone on a separate tutorial because I think this one's already at 20 minutes. So we'll stop, and then a separate tutorial for skin tone, which we might do tomorrow.